Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. Are you ready to learn about Skinyy Log Cabins? The markings on this new log cabin trim tool duo are going to show you how to line up and square up your standard log cabins, and we do have a video showing you how to do that. But today we're going to focus more on the Skinyy markings and how to use them, and let's kind of show you an example of what we're talking about. This is the wider 1-inch finished strips and the larger center that you get with your standard log cabin. This is the 1/2-inch finished strips and the smaller center. You can see how much the difference is here. You can make both of these things with this particular tool. So let's kind of walk through a few of the steps and show you how it's done. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start with a little example. This is actually your center square. We tell you right on here to cut 1 1/4 inch wide strips, which this is actually what I've done with all my strips, okay? I've cut a variety of the strips. I wanted 2 darks and 2 lights. So this is what you're going to see as I go through this process and show you. And then my center square is 1 1/2 inches, so I cut that. Then I added 2 light logs and 2 dark logs. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these Skinyy markings to square up and trim, okay? So I've got 4 logs. This is the same process we use on all of our log cabin rulers. You line up your first round, your center square, and then you trim 2 sides, okay? We're going to rotate, and we're going to line up again. Now notice that these other things are lining up too. Your other seam lines are lining up on those other dashed lines. And then we're going to trim. Now that you've got that little trimmed round, you can go ahead and add your next round of logs. So can you see that's my little log? I'll turn it that way. That's my little one in there. Now I've gone back in and I've added 2 more lights and 2 more darks. Okay, you always got to have your round done before you trim. Now I'm going to line up round 2 because this is the second round. Now notice that my other lines are lining up as well on my seam lines. My center square is lined up. I'm going to trim 2 sides. I'm going to rotate. And I'm going to trim the other 2 sides. Okay? Now, that's round 1 and round 2. In order to move on to round 3, I'm going to break this down a little bit more for you. I'm adding 2 more lights, and then I've got 2 more darks that I'm going to bring in here. Now, again, this is not a standard log or a regular traditional log cabin. This is a courthouse steps. So notice the difference. Instead of going in a clockwise motion, I go across from each other on a courthouse steps. And then I do across from each other. So I'm continuing that. I'm going to add 2 more. I've added 2 more lights. I'm going to add 2 more darks, okay? When I do that, I'm now going to trim again. It doesn't matter if I trim this way or if I trim this way. All 4 sides are getting trimmed, so it really doesn't matter. But now that I'm on there's the center, 1, 2, 3. Now that I'm on the 3rd round, I'm going to line up round 3 square, and I'm going to trim 2 sides. And I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to trim the other 2 sides. So you can see how this is very, very similar to the other log cabin rulers that we have. The process is basically the same, and it just continues. Same thing, as we just get larger, we just get bigger, we just go down, we trim more rounds, we just keep going, okay? We just keep going. Round 5, round 6, you can keep going all the way down to the 10. Now, what we also have done for you to help make this an easier process is we have made cheat sheets for you. These are available on the creativegridsusa.com website. On there, you're going to see these little sheets and you can print them. Let's go over them real quick here. The one that we were just making was the Skinyy courthouse steps. It's going to tell you the first and second light. Now these are pre-cut logs. So instead of using full strips like this and lining up on your block and adding it as you sew, we pre-cut our logs. Many people do, they find it very helpful. So as you can see in this example, when I pre-cut my log, it fits on there and I just keep sewing and sewing and sewing and pressing and trimming and sewing and pressing and trimming. Okay, so that's what these pre-cut logs are. So for your first lights, you would actually, this is going to tell you your first and second light. That is going to be your first and second light, okay? And then when it says first and second dark, your first and second dark, because you've got 4 logs around each center square. Then you've got, or you move down to round 2. Round 2 tells you that you have a first and second light and a first and second dark. So that's going to be your first and second. Even though in this particular block they're the same color, what they mean is you've got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing with this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you just continue the process. It tells you how to cut them. If you forget that you're on round 2, you use the round 2 trim up. That's just another helpful little tip. So this process goes on with all these other different log cabin, Skinyy Log Cabin shapes that you can do, or blocks. So on the traditional, you've got your first light, second light. Now remember, that's going to go in your clockwise direction. So it's going to be your first light, your second light, and then your first dark and your second dark. So that's the order of go on that one. We also have your half log cabin. So we help you with that. We show you how to start with your center square, and we tell you that that one is larger. That'll be a separate video. We can go through and show you how to do that if you guys decide that you want to know, see a video on how to do that. But for right now, this cheat sheet is going to show you that you need a light and a dark, a light and a dark, a light and a dark. So each round on this one is only 2 sides, okay? But it spells it out for you all right here. If you're going to do the square in a square style, you go clockwise, or you can go across from each other. It works out the same, okay? So here she's showing you in the diagram that you're going to go across from each other. So here you've got your first and second light. Once again, it's like the courthouse steps. 1, 2, and then third and fourth light, 3, 4. So you've got 4 that go all the way around, okay? So those are printable from the Creative Grids website. What you can also do, instead of starting with a small center square, is start with a larger square. It can be plain fabric like this one, which is where we've then just log cabined out around the edges. Use the ruler to trim each round, and we added an applique in the center. You could use pre-printed fabric panels there in the middle if you wanted to do that, and log cabin out from there. Basically what we did was we started with the 5.5 inch center square. That was because our applique seemed to fit on that size. You could start with a smaller one or a larger one. And then we added our strips for the narrow. Remember, you're looking right on your ruler for the sizes of the narrow strips. It tells you what size to cut. Now you're not cutting your center square 1.5. You're actually starting with 5, but that just means you're starting farther out in your log cabin. So I cut 1.25 inch wide strips and I've sewed them on, set my ruler down, and line up some dashed lines to where I can make the trimming that I need to make, okay? Continue on with your log cabin as you go. Log cabin out your strips, trimming around as you go, then add your applique when you're done in the center. Another option that you have is to start with just a pieced block. It can be a star, it can be a 9 patch, it can be anything you want it to be. And then just log cabin out from there. If you start with your smaller center, like it says here on your center, your Skinyy Log Cabin, to start with a 1.5 inch square. That's what this is a 1.5 inch square we started with. And then we started adding our strips around, and we just alternated so that you get your traditional looking log cabin with kind of a modern flair, instead of adding all just the teal color on one side and just the red on another. We mixed in white every other round to give it a more modern flair. The same thing was done in this quilt pattern that you see here. This is a cut loose press pattern. Ask for the companion cut loose press patterns at your local quilt shop.